When I first moved into a nursing home, I thought it would be a place of peace, a place where I could rest, be cared for, and spend my remaining years surrounded by kindness. The glossy brochures showed smiling seniors playing cards, gardening, and enjoying social activities. I believed I was making the right choice, stepping into a new chapter of tranquility. But reality, as I soon discovered, was far different from what I had imagined. Today, I want to share the 6 most painful, yet important lessons I learned after moving into this place. My hope is that by sharing my story, I can offer some perspective, not to discourage but to prepare and empower others who might one day walk this path. The first painful lesson was the loss of personal autonomy. It sounds simple, but it's 1,000 tiny cuts. At home, I decided when to wake up, what to eat for breakfast, and when to have my coffee. Here, life is run by a schedule that isn't mine. Breakfast is at 7:30 a.m. sharp, lunch is at noon, dinner is at 5 p.m. It doesn't matter if you're not hungry or if you were in the middle of a deep sleep. The routine dictates your day. Even something as personal as taking a shower requires scheduling and assistance, which means waiting your turn. This rigid structure, designed for efficiency, slowly erodes your sense of self. You're no longer an individual making choices, but a resident being managed. It taught me that freedom isn't about grand gestures. It's in the quiet, everyday decisions we take for granted. I miss being able to decide to have a late-night snack or simply sleep in on a rainy morning. The second lesson, and perhaps the one that stung the most, was confronting loneliness in a crowd. You look around, and you're surrounded by people, other residents, nurses, staff, but you can feel utterly alone. Many residents are lost in their own worlds, grappling with dementia or severe health issues. Conversations can be fleeting or repetitive. The friends you make can be gone the next day, either moved to a different unit or, sadly, having passed away. It's a constant rolling wave of goodbyes. The vibrant community I saw in the pictures was, in reality, a collection of lonely individuals sharing a space. This taught me that connection isn't about proximity. It's about shared experiences and mental presence. It forced me to learn how to find comfort in my own company, to treasure the small, meaningful interactions, and to hold on to the memories of the deep friendships I had in my life. The third painful lesson was the invisibility that comes with age. You feel like you're becoming a set of tasks rather than a person. You're the patient in room 204 who needs her blood pressure checked, or the one who needs help with her meals. The staff, for the most part, are doing their best, but they are overworked and have so many people to care for. They don't have time to ask about my life, my career as a librarian, my love for classical music, or the children I raised. I became my medical chart. This feeling of being unseen, of your life story being condensed into a few notes, is incredibly diminishing. It taught me the importance of asserting my identity. I started telling stories to anyone who would listen, sharing old photos with the younger aides, and asking them about their lives in return. I learned that if you want to be seen as a person, you have to keep reminding the world that you are one. Fourth, I learned about the slow surrender of privacy. In your own home, you have your sanctuary. You can close your bedroom door and be alone. Here, that door is never truly yours. Staff can walk in at any time for checks, to deliver medication, or for cleaning. Your personal space is constantly being entered. Even conversations with family can feel semi-public. When you need help with the most personal of tasks, like dressing or using the restroom, you have to let go of any sense of modesty you once had. It's a humbling and often uncomfortable process, but this taught me a strange kind of resilience. You learn to accept help with grace and to understand that the human body, in all its vulnerability, is just that, a body. The dignity you hold on to is internal, a sense of self that no one can take away, even when your physical privacy is gone. The fifth lesson was the financial strain and the feeling of being a burden. Nursing homes are incredibly expensive. I watch my life savings, which I worked so hard to build, dwindle month by month to pay for my care. There's a constant nagging guilt that comes with it. You see your children trying to manage the costs, and you can't help but feel like you're draining the resources you wanted to leave for them. It's a heavy weight to carry. I'd always prided myself on my independence and financial responsibility. To be in this position is a difficult pill to swallow. This painful reality taught me the importance of having open conversations about end-of-life planning and finances with your family long before it becomes a crisis. It's not a morbid conversation. It's a necessary act of love to prepare for the inevitable and ease the burden on everyone involved. The sixth and final lesson, however, was one of unexpected gratitude. For all the pain, frustration, and loneliness, there are moments of profound humanity. I learned to find joy in the smallest things. A kind word from a nurse's aide working a double shift, the warmth of the sun on my face during a brief walk in the garden, a shared laugh with another resident over a silly joke. I've seen incredible compassion from staff who treat us with tenderness, even when we are not at our best. I've learned that even in a place that can feel like a waiting room for the end, life persists. There is still beauty, still connection, still kindness to be found. This experience, in its own difficult way, taught me to stop taking things for granted and to cherish every single moment of clarity and comfort. It taught me that resilience isn't about being strong all the time. It's about finding a reason to smile, even when it's hard. These lessons were painful, yes, but they have also been transformative. They stripped away everything I thought was important and showed me what truly matters. A kind touch, a listening ear, a moment of genuine connection. If you are facing a similar journey for yourself or a loved one, my advice is to go in with your eyes wide open, advocate for yourself, hold on to your identity, and never ever stop looking for those small moments of grace. They are there, I promise. The first and perhaps the most profound lesson was about loneliness. You might look at a place like this bustling with residents and staff and think, how could anyone feel lonely here? But the truth is, loneliness can be a heavy, suffocating blanket, even in a crowded room. I see it every day. I see it in the hopeful glances towards the door, the hands that clutch old photographs, and the quiet sighs in the dining hall. Many here, myself included, rarely see our families. Life gets busy, I understand that. But days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. The calendar pages flip, but the scenery stays the same. The routine becomes a monotonous hum. Wake up, meals, medication, sleep. The staff here are wonderful people, truly. They are kind, patient, and they work incredibly hard. They bring us our meals, help us with our daily needs, and always have a professional smile. But they are always on the move, with so many people to care for. They simply don't have the time to sit and have a long chat, to listen to the stories we ache to tell, or to just be present with us in our quiet moments. I quickly learned that physical proximity to others doesn't guarantee companionship. True connection, that sense of being seen and heard, is a different thing entirely. You can be surrounded by 100 people and still feel like the only person on a deserted island. That realization, that you can be profoundly alone even when you're not physically by yourself, was the first and hardest truth I had to face. The second lesson was the loss of independence. For my entire adult life, I made my own decisions. What time to wake up, what to eat for breakfast, when to go for a walk, who to invite over. My home was my kingdom and I was its ruler. Here, that kingdom has shrunk to the size of this room. My schedule is no longer my own. Meals are served at set times, whether I'm hungry or not. Activities are planned for the group, not for my individual interests. Even something as simple as wanting a cup of tea in the middle of the night becomes a request that needs to be approved. It feels like slowly being stripped of your own agency, piece by piece. The staff do their best to offer choices, but it's within a very rigid framework. This isn't a criticism of them. It's the nature of institutional living. But it's a painful adjustment to go from being the captain of your own ship to just a passenger. It teaches you that independence is one of the most precious gifts we have, and we often don't appreciate it until it's gone. This leads directly to my third lesson: becoming invisible. As you get older, you start to feel a subtle shift in how the world sees you. But moving into a home like this accelerates that feeling tenfold. You become a resident, a patient, a number on a chart. People talk about you, often right in front of you, as if you aren't there. She needs her medication now. He had a fall this morning. They discuss your personal care, your health, your entire life in a detached, clinical way. Your personal history, the person you were before you came here, the career you built, the family you raised, the passions you pursued, it all seems to fade into the background. You become defined by your current state of dependency. I was a teacher for 40 years. I shaped young minds. Now I'm often just the lady in room 204. It's a slow, creeping erasure of your identity, and it's a deeply painful process to feel yourself disappearing while you're still here. The fourth lesson was about the illusion of safety. One of the main reasons families choose nursing homes is for safety and security, and in many ways, it is safer. There are nurses nearby, emergency call buttons, and no stairs to fall down. But I've learned that physical safety doesn't always translate to emotional or mental well-being. Living here means being a constant witness to decline and loss. You make a friend, you share stories and laughter over dinner, and then one day their chair is empty. You see the slow, steady progression of illness in your neighbors and in the mirror. There's an underlying current of anxiety and grief that flows through these halls. The ambulance that arrives in the middle of the night is a stark reminder of our collective fragility. While I'm physically safe from falling in my own home, I'm now exposed to a constant stream of emotional distress that is, in its own way, just as damaging. Safety is more than just a locked door and a nurse on call. It's also about feeling at peace, and that is very hard to find here. The fifth painful lesson has been about finances. I worked hard my whole life and saved diligently for retirement. I thought I had planned well. I never imagined that the cost of this care would be so astronomical. My savings, which I had hoped to leave for my grandchildren, are being drained at an alarming rate. It's a constant source of stress, not just for me, but for my children who are helping to manage it all. There's a sense of guilt that comes with it, feeling like a financial burden. You see the monthly bills and you can't help but calculate how many months or years your life savings will last. It reduces your life to a balance sheet. This financial pressure adds another layer of anxiety to an already difficult situation. It is a harsh reality that the cost of growing old can strip you of everything you've worked for your entire life, leaving you with nothing but the bills. It's a painful irony. You need the care, but the care itself can lead to a different kind of ruin. And the sixth and final lesson, the one that ties all the others together, is the confrontation with your own mortality. You can't escape it here. Every empty bed, every quiet departure, every new face etched with worry is a reminder of where this journey ends. At home, you can distract yourself. You can fill your days with projects, hobbies, and friends. But here, life is stripped down to its bare essentials, and the end of life is a constant, visible presence. It forces you to think about your legacy, your regrets, and what it all meant. It's terrifying, but it's also strangely clarifying. It makes you cherish the small moments of kindness, the warmth of a sunbeam on your face, a shared laugh with another resident, or a phone call from a loved one. You learn to find meaning not in the grand plans for the future, but in the precious, fleeting moments of the present. This confrontation isn't easy, but it is the ultimate lesson. Sharing this has been difficult, but I wanted to be honest about this chapter of life. It's not all sadness. There are moments of light and connection. But these are the painful truths that have shaped my experience. I hope it gives you something to think about, maybe to hold your loved ones a little closer. Before I moved here, I never really thought about how many small freedoms I enjoyed every single day. I just took them for granted. Things like deciding on a whim to make a midnight snack, or simply opening my front door to feel the cool night air. That all changed almost overnight. Suddenly, my daily routine wasn't my own anymore. The schedule became the new boss. Mealtimes were set in stone. Whether I was hungry or not, the food arrived at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 5 p.m. It felt like I was back in school, waiting for the bell to ring. I used to love cooking. I'd spend hours trying new recipes, the smell of garlic and herbs filling my kitchen. Now the choice is usually between two options, neither of which I'd have picked for myself. I miss the simple act of chopping an onion, of tasting a sauce to see if it needs a little more salt. Bathing became a scheduled activity too. Someone would knock on my door and say, "It's your turn for a shower." It didn't matter if I'd rather have one in the evening to relax before bed, or first thing in the morning to wake myself up. The schedule dictated it. It's a strange feeling, having something so personal managed by someone else. Even sleep wasn't entirely my own decision. Lights out at a certain time, and rounds of checks throughout the night. I used to be a night owl, staying up late reading a good book. Here, the quiet hum of the facility lulls you into a collective bedtime. The freedom to just be, to exist on my own terms, felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I remember one afternoon, the sun was shining so beautifully. I just wanted to go outside, sit on a bench, and feel the warmth on my face. But I couldn't just walk out the door. I had to find a staff member, sign out, and explain where I was going, even if it was just to the little garden area 10 feet away. It felt less like a home and more like a gilded cage, built for my safety, yes, but a cage nonetheless. This loss of autonomy was, and still is, one of the hardest adjustments. You're told this is for your comfort and well-being, to make your life easier, and in many ways, it does. I don't have to worry about cooking, cleaning, or falling when I'm alone. But I learned a painful lesson, that comfort can come at the price of your own control. You trade spontaneity for safety and personal choice for a structured plan. It's a trade-off I never anticipated having to make. It's taught me to cherish every tiny decision I do get to make. Choosing which book to read from the library cart, or deciding to wear my blue sweater instead of the gray one, these small acts of self-determination have become incredibly precious. They're my little anchors to the person I was, the one who navigated the world on her own terms. Living here has profoundly redefined what independence means to me. It's not about grand gestures of freedom anymore. It's about the quiet, personal choices that affirm you are still the author of your own life, even if you're just writing in the margins of a pre-printed page. The first lesson hit me almost immediately: the loss of autonomy. At home, I decided everything. What time I woke up, what I ate for breakfast, when I went for a walk. Here, my life is largely scheduled. Meal times are fixed, activities are at set hours, and even simple things like taking a shower might depend on when an aid is available. It's a constant, subtle reminder that you're no longer in complete control of your own life. It's frustrating, and at times feels infantilizing. I had to learn to advocate for myself, to voice my preferences clearly and kindly, and to find small ways to reclaim my independence within the system. It's a daily practice in patience and self-assertion. The second painful lesson was about loneliness, but not in the way you might think. I'm surrounded by people all day, but it's a different kind of solitude. I miss the easy, casual interactions of my old life, chatting with the mailman, waving to a neighbor, the comfortable silence with a lifelong friend in my own living room. Here, conversations can sometimes feel forced or superficial. You are trying to build new connections from scratch at a point in life when you're perhaps less open or energetic than you used to be. I learned that you have to be intentional about fighting this loneliness. You have to be the one to say hello first, to ask a question, to make an effort, even on days when you just want to retreat into yourself. This brings me to the third, and perhaps most heart-wrenching lesson. This one didn't come from my own experience, but from watching the people around me. I saw a profound sadness in many of my fellow residents, a quiet despair that was just palpable. I saw people who had once been vibrant, full of life, just give up. They stopped going to the dining hall. They stopped participating in activities. They stopped caring about how they looked. I'd hear them talk, often in hushed tones, about waiting for the end. It was as if they felt they had been put on a shelf, forgotten by the world outside these walls. Seeing this broke my heart. It made me realize something crucial. Emotional and mental well-being is just as vital as physical care. A facility can have the best medical staff and the cleanest rooms, but if the residents feel invisible, if their spirits are crushed, what's the point? It's not enough to just keep a body alive. You have to nurture the soul. This lack of focus on genuine emotional support is a massive failing in so many elder care systems. It taught me that we have to fight for that human connection, not just for ourselves, but for those around us who have lost the will to fight for themselves. Sometimes, a simple conversation or a shared smile can be the most powerful medicine of all. The fourth lesson was a harsh financial one. I always thought I had planned well for retirement, but the cost of long-term care is staggering. It depletes savings at a terrifying rate. You see your life's work, everything you saved for your children and grandchildren, just disappearing into monthly facility fees. There's a constant, low-level anxiety about money, about becoming a burden. It forced me to have very difficult and honest conversations with my family about finances, something my generation was often taught to keep private. The lesson here is stark. No matter how much you think you have saved, it's probably not enough. It is crucial for people to understand the real costs of long-term care and to explore all their options, like long-term care insurance, well before they need it. The fifth painful lesson was about perception. When you tell someone you live in a nursing home, you can see a flicker of something in their eyes. Pity, perhaps, or a quick dismissive judgment. It's like the label itself erases your past, your accomplishments, your entire identity. You're no longer John the engineer or Mary the teacher. You're just an old person in a home. People start talking to you differently, sometimes louder and slower, as if your hearing and intellect vanish the moment you walked through the door. I had to learn to gently correct them, to hold on to my sense of self with fierce determination, and to remind people, and sometimes myself, that I am still the same person I've always been, just in a new and admittedly challenging environment. And that leads me to the sixth and final lesson, which is actually one of hope. After experiencing all of this pain and frustration, I learned the incredible power of perspective and gratitude. Yes, I've lost a lot, but I'm still here. I have a roof over my head, I have meals provided, and I am safe. I've learned to find joy in the smallest things. A sunny spot in the garden, a good book from the library, a funny story shared by another resident, a phone call from my granddaughter. I learned that even in a place that can feel like an ending, you can still find new beginnings. I started a small book club. I help another resident write letters to her family. I've chosen not to be one of the people waiting for the end. Instead, I've chosen to live every day I have left. The most painful lesson, ultimately, taught me the most important one. Life is precious and worth living, right up until the very last moment. And then, there was the fourth lesson, and this one. This one was a tough pill to swallow. It's about privacy, or rather, the sudden and almost complete lack of it. Before moving here, my home was my sanctuary. My room was my personal world. I could close the door and just be me, with my own thoughts, my own space. That all changed the day I moved in. Think about your own home for a second. Now, imagine a revolving door on your bedroom. That's what it felt like. Nurses, aides, other staff members. They would come in and out, sometimes with a quick knock, sometimes without. At first, it was jarring. I'd be in the middle of a phone call, a private conversation with my daughter, and the door would swing open. I'd be trying to rest and someone would come in to check my vitals. There were no secrets. Every conversation felt like it was being broadcast. Personal space became this incredibly precious, almost mythical commodity. You learn to live in a fishbowl. It's a strange feeling being constantly observed, even when the staff are being kind and professional. You feel exposed, vulnerable. It's a powerful lesson in humility, that's for sure. You learn to hold on to your dignity with both hands, to create a little bubble of inner privacy when the world outside your own head feels so public. You learn to be patient, to endure the interruptions with a quiet grace you didn't know you had. It's not about being weak, it's about finding a different kind of strength, a resilience that allows you to maintain your sense of self, even when your personal space has all but vanished. It is a lesson that reshapes your understanding of what it means to have a space to call your own. But the system itself is often stretched to its breaking point. The reality is that many staff members are incredibly overworked, juggling the needs of dozens of residents at once. And when people are that stressed and that tired, mistakes happen. It's an unfortunate but inevitable consequence. I've experienced it firsthand. There were times my medication was late, sometimes by hours. There were moments I'd press the call button for help, and it would feel like an eternity before anyone arrived. Simple requests, like a glass of water or help adjusting my pillows, would be forgotten in the shuffle. It's not always out of malice. It's often a symptom of a system under immense pressure. The staff are running from one room to another, putting out fires, and sometimes your small need gets lost in the chaos. This was a deeply sobering realization for me. You understand, on a very personal level, just how fragile you've become when your basic well-being, your health, your comfort, your dignity, depends entirely on other people. And it's a hard truth that not every caregiver, for whatever reason, has the capacity to give you the gentle, patient care you not only need but also deserve. You learn to become your own advocate, to speak up, to be persistent. I had to learn to say, "Excuse me, I'm still waiting for my 9 o'clock medication." Or, "Could you please check on this for me again?" It's exhausting to have to fight for basic attention when you're already feeling vulnerable. You see others who can't speak up for themselves, who are perhaps confused or too timid, and your heart just breaks for them because you know their needs might be overlooked. This experience taught me the critical importance of having an external advocate, a family member, a friend, someone on the outside who can check in, ask the tough questions, and make sure you're not falling through the cracks. It's a safety layer that becomes absolutely essential. It's not about mistrusting everyone. It's about understanding the system's limitations and preparing for them. It's a harsh lesson in dependency and the crucial need for vigilance, both from yourself and from those who love you. Finally, we've arrived at the sixth and, in many ways, the most profound lesson I learned after moving into this nursing home. This one hits close to home, and it has about something we often take for granted until it's not readily available: the irreplaceable value of family. You know, when you first get here, there's a flurry of activity. The staff are kind, there are schedules, structured activities, and other residents to talk to. There's bingo on Tuesdays, a movie night on Fridays, and 3 meals a day served like clockwork. On paper, it sounds like you have everything you need. The facility does its best to create a sense of community, and for that, I am grateful. They try to fill your days to keep your mind occupied, to make sure you're not lonely. But I quickly learned a powerful and, yes, painful truth. No amount of organized fun or professional care can ever replace the warmth of a loved one's presence. Nothing. It's a different kind of connection, a different kind of comfort. It's the comfort of shared history, of inside jokes that no one else would get, of a look that says more than 1,000 words. I remember one particular afternoon, a few months after I'd moved in. I was feeling particularly low. The initial novelty had worn off, and the reality of my new life was settling in. The days felt long and monotonous, each one blending into the next. I was sitting by the window in the common room, just watching the cars go by, feeling a bit invisible. And then, I saw her, my daughter, pulling into the visitor parking lot. My heart did a little leap. I hadn't expected her. She walked in, carrying a small bag, and her face just lit up when she saw me. She came over, gave me a huge hug, and sat down right next to me. She didn't stay for long, maybe only an hour. She had to get back to her own kids, her job. But in that 1 hour, the entire color of my day changed. We didn't do much. She showed me pictures of my grandkids on her phone, told me a funny story about what my youngest grandson said at school, and we just talked. We talked about nothing and everything. She helped me open a stubborn jar of jam that had been sitting on my shelf. Just simple, ordinary things. But that short visit, that 1 hour, meant more to me than a whole week's worth of bingo games and movie nights. It was like a splash of vibrant color in a black and white world. It was a powerful reminder that I was still dad, still grandpa. I was still part of a family that loved me and thought of me. That's when it truly sank in. The most precious gifts you can give to anyone, especially to an older person, aren't things you can buy. They are love, attention, and time. When my daughter sat with me, she wasn't just passing the time. She was giving me a piece of her life, her undivided attention. She was telling me without saying a word, "You matter. You are important to me." That feeling is something no facility, no matter how wonderful, can replicate. The staff here are professionals, and many are incredibly compassionate. They provide care, but family provides connection. It's a soul-deep bond that nourishes you in a way that food and medicine cannot. This experience has completely shifted my perspective. Before, I might have thought a quick phone call was enough. Now I understand the profound impact of just being there. The silence you can share with a loved one is more comforting than the chatter of a dozen acquaintances. The touch of a familiar hand on your shoulder can soothe anxieties that no medication can reach. So, if you're watching this, and you have a parent, a grandparent, or an older loved one, whether they are in a nursing home or living alone, please hear me. Your presence is the greatest gift you can offer. You don't need to plan a big event or bring an expensive present. Just show up, sit with them. Listen to their stories, even if you've heard them 100 times. Hold their hand. Let them know they are not forgotten. That time you spend is an investment in love. It combats the loneliness that can be so crushing in old age. It reminds them of their identity beyond being a resident or a patient. It reaffirms their place in the family and in the world. For me, that's the final painful but beautiful lesson. In the end, amidst all the changes and challenges of aging, it's the simple human connection with family that truly sustains the spirit. It's the anchor in the storm. The first lesson, and perhaps the hardest to swallow, was the loss of autonomy. It happened so gradually I almost didn't notice it then all at once. At home, I decided when to wake up, what to eat, who to see. Here, my life is governed by a schedule. Breakfast is at 8, lunch at 12, dinner at 5. Medication is dispensed at set times, whether I'm asleep or in the middle of a conversation. It's not that the staff is unkind, it's the system. You become a series of tasks on a checklist. Has room 204 had their shower? Have they taken their pills? The little choices that make up a day, that make up a life, are slowly stripped away. I remember the first time a nurse helped me get dressed without asking what I wanted to wear. I was just a body to be clothed. That day, I felt a piece of my identity crumble. You don't realize how much your independence is tied to these small, daily decisions until they're gone. The second painful lesson was the stark reality of loneliness, even in a crowded place. You're surrounded by people, residents, staff, visitors, but you can feel utterly alone. The conversations often become superficial, revolving around the weather, the food, or aches and pains. The deep, meaningful connections that nourished me for decades are harder to find and maintain. My family visits, and I'm so grateful, but they have their own busy lives. When they leave, the silence in my room is deafening. I see other residents who rarely, if ever, have visitors. Their eyes hold a particular kind of sadness, a waiting that never ends. We sit together in the common room, a collection of lonely souls, watching the television without really seeing it. You learn that loneliness isn't about being physically alone. It's about the absence of genuine connection, the feeling that you are no longer truly seen or heard by anyone. This leads to the third lesson, becoming invisible. As you get older, especially in a place like this, society starts to look past you. You become part of the background. People talk to your children instead of you, assuming you can't understand or make your own decisions. They use a high-pitched sing-song voice, the one reserved for toddlers. It's meant to be kind, but it's deeply patronizing. I was a professional, a parent, a traveler, a person with a rich history and complex thoughts. Now, I'm often just the lady in the wheelchair or the resident in room 204. My stories, my wisdom, my experiences, they feel like they've been put on a shelf, collecting dust. You fight to hold on to your sense of self, to remind people and yourself that you are still here, a whole person with a mind that still works, even if the body doesn't cooperate as it once did. The fourth lesson was grappling with the loss of physical space and privacy. My entire life, all my memories and possessions, had to be condensed into this one small room. Imagine having to choose which few photo albums, which handful of books, which single piece of furniture represents your entire existence. Everything else is gone, sold, given away, or thrown out. The home I built, the garden I tended, the chair I always sat in, they exist only in my memory now. And privacy? That's a luxury. Doors are often left ajar. Staff can walk in at any time, day or night, for checks or assistance. Your most private moments, using the bathroom, changing clothes, even crying, are rarely ever truly private. You learn to build walls inside your own mind, creating a small internal space that is yours and yours alone, because your physical space no longer is. The fifth painful lesson has been watching others decline and pass away. You form friendships here, bonds forged in shared circumstances. You share meals with someone every day. You laugh at the same old jokes. You complain about the same things. And then one day, their seat at the dinner table is empty. You ask where they are, and you get a quiet, somber answer. They've been moved to the hospital or they passed in the night. There's a brief moment of sadness, a few quiet acknowledgments, and then the routine continues. Life, such as it is, moves on. It's a constant, sobering reminder of your own mortality. Each empty chair is a glimpse into a possible future, and it forces you to confront death in a way that is raw and relentless. You learn to hold on to moments, to cherish the small connections, because you never know when they will be your last. But amidst all this pain, there is a sixth, and perhaps most profound lesson. It's the lesson of acceptance and finding joy in the smallest of things. For the first year, I fought everything. I was angry, resentful, and miserable. I mourned the life I had lost. But you can't live in that state forever. It will consume you. Slowly, painfully, I began to let go. I started to notice the little things, the warmth of the sun on my face as I sit by the window, the genuine, unhurried smile from a particular caregiver who takes a moment to ask about my day and actually listens, the taste of a perfectly brewed cup of tea, a good chapter in a book that transports me far away from these walls. These are not grand, life-altering joys. They are small, quiet, and fleeting. But they are life. They are moments of light in the darkness. You learn that when everything else is stripped away, the capacity for joy still remains, hiding in the tiniest of places waiting to be found. These lessons have been painful, but they have also been transformative. They've taught me about the fragility of life, the importance of human connection, and the resilience of the human spirit. Moving here felt like an ending, but in many ways, it's been a new, albeit difficult beginning. It has changed how I see aging, care, and life itself. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Don't wait. Don't wait to have those important conversations with your loved ones. Cherish your independence, but also nurture your connections. And never, ever underestimate the power of a small kindness. It can be a lifeline for someone who feels like they're drowning. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more reflections. Your presence here means more than you know. If someone had told me 10 years ago that I'd be sharing my story from a nursing home, I probably would have laughed. Life has a funny way of surprising you, doesn't it? If I could turn back the clock, I'd have fought tooth and nail to stay in my own home, surrounded by the ghosts of laughter and the comfort of my own four walls. But life doesn't have a rewind button. Instead, it gave me lessons. Painful ones, yes, but also incredibly profound. Life in a nursing home isn't the constant gray sadness you see in movies, but it's far from the carefree, easy comfort many people imagine. Today, I want to share 6 of those painful lessons with you, not for pity, but for perspective. The first lesson was the hardest to swallow. You lose your independence in 1,000 tiny ways. It starts subtly. You can't just decide to bake cookies at midnight because the kitchen is closed. You can't just walk out the front door for a stroll whenever you please. There are schedules and sign-out sheets. These aren't malicious rules. They're for safety. But each one is a small chip away from the autonomy you've taken for granted your entire life. Suddenly, your day is structured by meal times, medication times, and activity times. You become a participant in a schedule, not the architect of your own day. It's a humbling and frankly infuriating adjustment. You learn to ask for things you never thought you'd need to ask for, like an extra blanket or help reaching something on a high shelf. It taught me that true independence isn't just about big decisions. It's about the million little choices that make up a day, and you don't realize how precious they are until they're gone. The second lesson is that loneliness can be a crowded room. You look around and see dozens of people, but connection is a different story. You're surrounded by bodies, but you can feel utterly alone. Everyone here has their own story, their own grief, their own family dramas playing out on visiting days. Some residents retreat into themselves, lost in memories or illness. Others are friendly, but the conversations can feel superficial. You miss the effortless intimacy of old friends, the shared history that needs no explanation. You miss being known. I've had more meals with strangers in the past year than in my entire life before this. You learn to make small talk, to find common ground over the quality of the mashed potatoes or the weather. but deep, meaningful connection. That takes work, vulnerability, and a bit of luck. It's a stark reminder that being around people isn't the same as being with people. This brings me to my third painful lesson. Your identity shrinks. Out in the world, you were a teacher, an engineer, a gardener, a mother, a traveler. You had hobbies, responsibilities, a role in your community. Here, your primary identity becomes resident, or worse, your room number. People know you by your ailments more than your achievements. Oh, that's Arthur from 2B, the one with the bad hip. It's not meant to be cruel. It's just a practical way of identifying people in a large facility. But it stings. You have to fight to hold on to who you are. I started telling stories about my travels, bringing out old photo albums and talking about the books I used to love. You have to constantly remind yourself and others that you are more than your current circumstances. You are a lifetime of experiences, not just a person in a room who needs assistance. Losing that sense of self is a quiet, creeping pain you have to actively fight every single day. The fourth lesson is one I wish every family would understand. The burden of being a good visitor is heavy. My children are wonderful. They visit, they call, they bring me my favorite snacks, but I see the strain in their eyes. They feel guilty. They try to be cheerful, filling the silence with small talk about their work or their kids' soccer games. They are performing, and in turn, I feel the pressure to perform too. To be cheerful, to reassure them that I'm okay, that they made the right decision. I don't want to burden them with my loneliness or my frustrations. So we have these carefully curated conversations where the most important things are left unsaid. It's a strange dance of love and obligation. I know they love me, but the dynamic has shifted. I've become a duty, a weekend task to be checked off, and that is a painful truth for any parent to face. Lesson number 5. You become invisible. This one is subtle but profound. When staff are busy, rushing from room to room, they're focused on tasks, medication, bathing, changing sheets. They are often kind, but they are overworked. They might talk over you, or to your family member who is visiting, as if you aren't there. How is she feeling today? They'll ask my son, while I'm sitting right there. It's a small thing, but it makes you feel like an object, a task to be managed rather than a person to be engaged with. You also become invisible to the outside world. The invitations to parties stop coming. Friends who swore they'd visit get caught up in their own lives. The world moves on without you, and you watch it through a window or on a television screen. You're no longer a part of the vibrant, messy flow of life. You're an observer. And that fading relevance is a unique and painful kind of grief. The final, and perhaps most important lesson I've learned is this. You must find joy in the small things, or you will find no joy at all. This sounds like a cliche, but when your world shrinks to the size of a building, you have to adjust your perspective. I've learned to cherish the warmth of the sun on my face during my 30 minutes in the garden. I've found delight in a surprisingly good cup of coffee, or a genuinely funny joke from a caregiver. I've discovered a friendship with a woman down the hall over a shared love for old movies. These moments are my lifeboats. They are the flickers of light that keep the darkness at bay. Before, joy was a vacation, a promotion, a big celebration. Now joy is a bird landing on my windowsill. It's a phone call from a grandchild. It's finishing a crossword puzzle. This place has stripped life down to its bare essentials, and in doing so, it has taught me what truly matters. It's not the grand achievements, but the tiny daily moments of grace. Living here has been a painful education. It has taught me about loss, loneliness, and the slow erosion of self. But it has also taught me about resilience and the incredible human capacity to find light in unexpected places. My hope in sharing this is not to scare you, but to encourage you to cherish your independence, to nurture your connections, and to never, ever take the small joys for granted. Life is so much richer than we realize when we're in the midst of it. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It means a lot to feel heard. If this resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. I plan on sharing more stories and lessons from in here. Thank you again, and be well.